The cold wind cut through the frozen silence as the helicopter blades faded into the distance, leaving behind only a woman alone, the Arctic ice. Her name was Mara. She wasn't famous, didn't wear a uniform, and carried nothing but a worn-out duffel bag and a face weathered by time and storms. To the group of elite explorers who had flown in with her, she was just the civilian. They laughed quietly, sharing smirks behind their high-tech goggles. What was someone like her doing out here miles from civilization, standing on shifting sheets of ancient ice? The team leader, a sharp-jawed man named Pierce, didn't even bother hiding his amusement. 3 minutes, he said, checking his watch. That's how long she lasted before begging to come back. Cameras were already rolling, part of a live stream expedition meant to showcase survival, gear, and ego. Mara had signed a waiver. That was enough for them, but she didn't flinch. While the others set up their branded tents and adjusted their GoPros, Mara simply walked. No one followed. No one even watched till she stopped at the edge of a jagged crevice, dropped to one knee, and started doing something none of them expected. The laughing slowed. A few turned to look. She was tracing symbols into the snow with her bare fingers. Then came the low hum like ice cracking beneath pressure, but deeper, older. The cameras began to shake. One explorer swore they saw the snow shift under her feet like it was breathing. "What is she doing?" one whispered, suddenly uneasy. 3 minutes passed. Then Mara stood up. What rose behind her silenced the mocking for good. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't human. And it wasn't supposed to exist. The ice groaned. The live stream cut out, and in that frozen silence, not one of them dared to laugh again. Before any of them could speak, the ice cracked again, louder this time. A shiver ran through the ground beneath their boots. Mara didn't move. Her face stayed calm, almost solemn, as if she had seen this coming. The others weren't so composed. Cameras dropped. Boots shuffled backward. The confident smiles from earlier were gone, replaced by tight jaws and darting eyes. Something was rising from that crevice, huge, slow, ancient. None of their gear had prepared them for this. 3 weeks earlier, Mara had shown up at a northern base station asking about charter flights to a restricted Arctic zone. No one took her seriously. She looked like a librarian, quiet and reserved. Nothing like the rugged survivalists and researchers that passed through those halls. But she carried a hand-drawn map, one that marked a stretch of ice nobody dared cross anymore. When pressed, she said only, "I need to return what doesn't belong to us." Back then, no one asked what it was. Now, with the Arctic winds howling louder, they wished they had. The thing rising from the ice wasn't clearly visible. Its shape seemed to shift in the snowstorm. Dark and towering, like a forgotten monument, forcing its way back into the world. Strange carvings glowed faintly along the surface, pulsing in rhythm with the tremors underfoot. Mara stepped back slowly, her hands now covered in blue frost. She turned toward the others, finally breaking her silence. "You need to leave," she said firmly. "Right now."
But
Pierce didn't move. He was still clinging to the idea that this was some kind of stunt, maybe even an illusion. "What is that?" he demanded. "What are you doing out here?" Kier looked him dead in the eye. "I didn't summon it," she said. "I came to stop it." And then the sky cracked open. The sky above fractured like a mirror, cracking ribbons of pale light stretching wide, casting eerie shadows across the ice. The explorers scrambled, some trying to capture the moment with trembling hands, others frozen in disbelief. Mara's eyes never left the dark shape emerging from the crevice. It was massive, ancient, like something pulled from stories no one dared tell anymore. The air around it shimmered with cold energy, biting into the skin and chilling the soul. Pierce barked orders. But his voice lacked its usual authority. Everyone back to camp. Now, some obeyed, while others hesitated. Drawn to the strange monument as if hypnotized, one of the cameramen whispered, "Is this even real?" His question hung in the icy air. Unanswered, Mara moved quietly toward the structure, her boots crunching softly on the snow. She traced the glowing carvings with a gloved hand, her face grim. "This is the heart of the ice," she said, voice low. "A force older than any of us. It was buried here to keep the balance until humans started digging too deep." She glanced around. Scientists, explorers, even governments have poked around these frozen lands, chasing resources or fame. But some things aren't meant to be disturbed. Meanwhile, another subplot was unfolding. Jenna, the expedition's meteorologist, frantically checked her instruments. "The weather's shifting fast. A storm's coming, stronger than anything recorded here. We're trapped if we don't move." The storm wasn't just natural. It seemed tied to the awakening beneath their feet, as if the Arctic itself was fighting back. Phones lost signal. Radios crackled with static. Fear grew thicker than the frost on their faces. Pierce, still unwilling to accept the strange, demanded answers. "Why did you bring us here, Mara? What's your real purpose?" Mara's eyes darkened. "To stop a disaster." But it might already be too late. The heart of the ice pulsed again, its glow intensifying. The explorers stared in silent terror, realizing the Arctic had secret sand power they barely understood. The storm was closing in fast. The wind howled like a living thing, whipping snow and ice into blinding sheets that stole sight and sound. The temperature plummeted even further, frost biting through layers of clothing. The group huddled closer, but no one moved toward safety, not yet. All eyes remained fixed on the massive structure that pulsed with cold, otherworldly light. It was like the heartbeat of the Arctic itself, slow and steady, yet filled with a terrifying power. Mara's voice cut through the chaos, steady but urgent. "This isn't just a monument. It's a prison. And right now, it's weakening." She pulled from her bag a small, ancient-looking relic, its surface covered with the same glowing symbols. "This is the key. I've spent years tracking it, hoping to keep whatever's inside from breaking free." Pierce's skepticism was gone, replaced by raw fear. What happens if it breaks loose? Mara swallowed hard. Everything freezes. Life ends. The ice spreads unstoppable and endless. Jenna's instruments beeped wildly, the storm's eye spinning closer. "We have minutes before the blizzard traps us here. We have to act." The others looked between Mara and the monstrous form behind her. The glowing carvings started to pulse faster, flickering like a warning. The ice beneath their feet trembled, small cracks spiderwebbing out in every direction. The ancient force was waking, and its power was growing. Suddenly, a deafening roar shattered the wind. The ice fractured violently, shards exploding outward like frozen daggers. The explorers stumbled, clutching at anything solid. Mara took a deep breath, stepping forward, clutching the relic tightly. "This is it," she said, voice barely audible. "The moment that decides everything." As the storm reached a terrifying crescendo, the glowing structure began to rise, casting long, twisted shadows across the frozen wasteland. The air thickened, the cold turning sharp enough to freeze breath mid-exhale, and just when it seemed they might be swallowed by the endless ice forever, Mara reached out. But what happened next? No one could have predicted. Mara's fingers brushed the relic's surface, and for a moment, everything seemed to pause. The storm's roar dimmed. The ice's trembling slowed, and the pulsing light steadied. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of calming the ancient force, the relic shattered into icy fragments, scattering like shards of frozen glass across the ground. Mara's eyes widened in shock. The weight of failure crashing over her. Before anyone could react, the dark shape behind her shifted violently, revealing not just a monument, but a creature tall, covered in frost and ancient carvings. Its eyes glowing with a chilling intelligence. It wasn't a force of nature or a simple prison, but a living being awakened from a long slumber. Pierce stumbled back, voice shaking. "It's alive. How is this possible?" Jenna's breath caught in her throat. "The storm. It's feeding off this thing. The more it moves, the stronger the blizzard becomes." Mara's calm facade cracked for the first time. This wasn't supposed to happen. The relic was the seal, the key to keeping it dormant. Now, it's free. The air grew colder, the temperature dropping so fast frost formed on their eyelashes. The creature let out a low, resonating growl that seemed to echo across the ice, shaking the ground beneath them. The explorers scrambled for cover, but the ice beneath their feet began to crack wide, threatening to swallow them whole. Jenna's instruments blinked erratically, warning of rapidly changing weather patterns. "We don't have time. If this thing fully awakens, the Arctic will become a frozen wasteland, far worse than anything recorded." Mara steadied herself and shouted over the storm, "We have to stop it before the ice consumes everything." But with the relic broken and the creature alive, the odds had just become impossible. The frozen silence was shattered by the creature's roar as it advanced, and the explorers faced the terrifying reality. They were no longer witnesses to history. They were caught in a battle for survival against the very heart of the Arctic itself. Mara's heart pounded as the creature loomed closer, its breath freezing the air with every exhale. Desperation pushed her forward despite the biting cold. She grabbed a shard of the broken relic, glowing faintly on the ice, and held it up. "Isn't just a seal its part of its core? Maybe I can use it to calm it down." Pierce and Jenna covered her as she stepped nearer, hands trembling but determined. The creature paused, eyes narrowing on the flickering shard. Mara whispered an ancient chant she had learned from old texts, words meant to soothe what should never have awakened. Slowly, the glowing on the shard grew brighter, and the creature's movements stilled. The roaring storm softened, replaced by an eerie calm. The ice beneath them stopped cracking, and the blizzard's fury eased as if the Arctic itself was holding its breath. Mara's voice grew stronger. "You don't belong here in this broken world. Return to the deep sleep where you were meant to be." The creature's eyes dimmed, the carvings on its body fading with the light. It lowered its massive form back into the crevice, the ice sealing up behind it. The wind settled. The temperature rose slightly, the oppressive cold retreating. Relief washed over the team like a warm tide. But just as they started to believe the nightmare was over, Mara's gaze fell on the scattered relic shards glittering in the snow. One piece pulsed faintly, still alive. Pierce's voice broke the silence. "Is it really finished?" Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "No. The heart of the ice never truly dies. It waits." Far above, the pale Arctic sky flickered once more, not with stars, but with a faint, unnatural glow. Something ancient and endless was still watching, still waiting, and the ice was not done yet. As the cold began to ease and the storm finally broke, the team gathered around the fading glow of the relic shards. The Arctic ice returned to its eerie stillness, but something had changed, something deeper than the frozen landscape. Mara looked at her companions, their faces etched with exhaustion and awe, and felt a quiet weight settle in her chest. This was more than survival. It was a reminder of how small humans were in the face of nature's ancient forces. Pierce, once the skeptic, nodded slowly. "We thought this was just another expedition, another chance to prove ourselves. But this was something else." Jenna checked her instruments again. The weather was clearing, but she warned, The Arctic's always unpredictable. This event will be studied for years, and I'm not sure we've seen the last of its mysteries. Mara smiled faintly, the tension in her shoulders easing. I came here to protect this place, to make sure the heart of the ice stayed buried. We succeeded today, but only just. The team packed up, their cameras capturing the fading landscape, quiet, cold, and beautiful. Mara's story, once dismissed, had become a warning. Some parts of the Earth hold secrets too powerful for human hands. The Arctic was alive, watching, and always ready to remind us of its strength. As they flew back to civilization, the relic shard pulsing quietly in Mara's pack, she wondered what future expeditions might uncover. The ice might seem still, but beneath its surface, something ancient waited patiently. Their journey had ended, but the story of the heart of the ice was far from over, and in the silent vastness of the Arctic, the frozen secrets remain waiting to be awakened again.